What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and this will be my hero tier list power rankings, ranking every single hero in Marvel Champions by how strong they are. And I thought that this is the perfect time to finally do this tier list. One, because I finally played every single hero in Marvel Champions. This took me over a year to do, but we finally did it. And Magneto has finally been released, so every single hero leading up to 2025 has been released now. So this is going to be the end of 2024, leading up to 2025. Hero tier list power ranking for every single hero in Marvel Champions. And I do want to make a disclaimer. This is just my opinion based on my experience of playing Marvel Champions of where I'm going to rank these heroes right here. If you guys have a different experience, that is definitely valid. Definitely let me know down in comments. But yeah, this tier list here, it's not influenced by any other tier list from any other that I've seen online or any other content creator. This is my personal experience playing these heroes and where I rank them. And for my personal criteria, I put a lot of stock in the more difficult scenarios. So like for example, if we take like a random hero here, like let's say Groot, and we take like another random hero like let's say I don't know, Doctor Strange, right? A lot of people would say Doctor Strange is the most strong hero in the game, and then a lot of people say that Groot is not that powerful, right? But if we evaluate them, let's say against an easy villain like Crossbones, I think that both Groot and Doctor Strange can easily take down Crossbones. So that's not a big factor for me whenever I'm evaluating these heroes. Whenever we're facing, like for example, Ronan the Accuser, who is the most difficult villain in the game, in my opinion, Doctor Strange can still take down Ronan the Accuser, and then Groot has a lot of trouble with that scenario. So I put a lot more stock into that scenario versus the easier scenarios, just because I feel like every single hero can take them down anyways. But yeah, this is just my opinion. So let's go ahead and get started here, and let's explain the rankings. So I only have 5 tiers here. I want to keep it really simple, and these videos tend to go really long for me, so I want to keep this as short as possible. I'm just going to say kind of one good thing about the hero and then one bad thing about the hero too, and then kind of why they're in this specific ranking for me. So the S tier are going to be the strongest heroes in the game of Marvel Champions. This will basically be heroes that I think that can defeat every single scenario in Marvel Champions very consistently. And this particularly means Venom, Goblin, Ronan, and Magneto, which are the 3 strongest heroes in the game. These heroes in S tier can defeat them reliably and consistently. A tier here are heroes that are very powerful, and they'll demolish 90% of villains in the game very consistently. But those cream of the crop scenarios, like I just mentioned, Ronan, Venom, Goblin, and Magneto, will give the A tier heroes a little bit of difficulty. Maybe they have like a 50% win rate, or maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit less. Just they still can defeat them. It's just not very consistently. B tier is what I consider the average hero. So there are better heroes and worse heroes. It's just like right in the average of Marvel Champions. C tier are heroes that I think are a little bit under the curve. So especially against those more difficult scenarios that we just mentioned, I think that C tier heroes can struggle a lot against those scenarios, but I think that they can take them down. But yeah, definitely they struggle a lot more than B tier and A tier. And then for D tier here, these in my opinion are the worst heroes in Marvel Champions in terms of power rankings. Not my personal opinion, because some of the heroes that I will put here I actually like a lot. But just in this game, Marvel Champions, in terms of their power, I don't think they're that strong. I don't think that D tier heroes can defeat every single villain in Marvel Champions. Now, I've seen a lot of posts, and people have told me that if you give any hero a leadership deck that's really powerful, they will defeat any scenario in Marvel Champions. I do not think that is true. For example, I have a playthrough with Valkyrie playing a leadership deck with a lot of recursion against Expert Magneto, and I could not defeat Expert Magneto. I don't think that Valkyrie can defeat that scenario, and Magneto isn't even one of the strongest villains in the game. So yeah, as a villain, I mean, because there is also the Magneto hero, so I don't want to get confused on that. But yeah, I mean, I do not think that every hero can defeat every single villain in the game, and D tier are those heroes that cannot do that. Yeah, so I think we got everything there out there with the disclaimer and everything, and yeah, let's go ahead and get started here with Iron Man, who started the MCU here, and he's gonna start off our tier list. So Iron Man is the first hero in the core set, and I think that he is an A tier hero. He is your classic build out hero. So the cons about Iron Man is that he has a very weak start because he only has a hand size of a 1 in his hero form, and then that's really, really bad, and it's tough to manage that. But when you get fully built out, he's one of the strongest heroes in the game. He has a hand size of 7 in his hero form whenever you get all your tech upgrades out, which is above the curve, like way above the curve in hero form, because normal heroes have a hand size of 5. So the problem with Iron Man is just how long he takes to get built out, but once he is built out, he's very powerful. So managing that early game is the most important thing with Iron Man, and I think he goes in A tier because he can still defeat every single scenario in the game. I have videos with Iron Man defeating Expert Venom Goblin and Magneto on my channel as well. So I think Iron Man can definitely defeat every single scenario. It'll be a little bit of a challenge early game, but once he gets past that early game phase, he can definitely do it. So I think that he definitely belongs in A tier. All right, next we have Black Panther, who's also from the core set. Black Panther to me is kind of like your super duper average hero. I'm putting him here in the B tier. I think that he has a better start than Iron Man, but and he comes out of the gate like pretty good, right? He has a 2 Thor, 2 attack, 2 defense, and a regular hand size, so it's pretty decent. He also has Retaliate 1 on his hero card, so that's pretty good. But once he is fully built out with all of his upgrades, I don't think that he doesn't feel like he's making as much of an impact with Wakanda Forever's than like Iron Man with the suit built out, right? I just feel like the impact that Black Panther has whenever he is built out is not that good. And late game, when you need everything to go right, where it's more important because the villain's more ranked up as well, there might be acceleration tokens on the main scheme, and you really want to have that damage or thwart removal. I don't think that Black Panther carries as much of a punch as Iron Man and a lot of the A tier or S tier heroes. So I'm putting here in the B tier. Next, we have She-Hulk here. And She-Hulk, definitely whenever there's only the core set, I would have probably put her maybe in the C tier or in the B tier behind Black Panther. But I think that She-Hulk is a hero that has gone a lot more powerful as the card pool has expanded in Marvel Champions. So I'm actually going to put her near the upper end of B tier. And I'm going to put her above Black Panther. So basically the way that She-Hulk works and the con about her is that she relies a lot on her alter ego because her hand size in hero form is only 4. So if you stay in hero form the entire game, your economy is pretty bad. But with more cards that came out, she has a lot better of an access to her alter ego, and being able to flip down to alter ego consistently increases her hand size to not only 6, but when she flips up to hero form, her do you even live can do 2 damage to any enemy, which is really good and tons of value if you're flipping back and forth the entire game. So yeah, with more cards, She-Hulk has definitely gotten stronger. I particularly love playing She-Hulk in the pool aspect. Huge shouts to Ritzy Rios, a channel member who created this amazing She-Hulk deck, which I think is like just super duper good. But yeah, I think she's definitely in the upper end of the B tier here, and definitely very underrated as a hero. Next we have Captain Marvel here, and Captain Marvel is definitely the strongest hero in the core set whenever you have a limited card pool. So I'm gonna put her in the A tier, and I know a lot of you guys might think that she goes in S tier. I think that she is very reliable. So the pro about her kit is that her economy is insane. Her alter ego ability can just draw her a card, which is really good. Her hero ability also draws you a card if you spend an energy resource, and you can heal with damage, right, with her rechannel. So I mean, she's very, very powerful. That's kind of the pro about her. The con is that I feel like that the cards in her kit are a little bit, I don't really want to say outdated, because I feel like they're fair for her kit because her identity card is so good. But a lot of her events, like her Photonic Blast, her Crisis Intervention, they are very under the curve of what you want whenever you're paying for a card and how much damage or how much thought remove that it does. And also, in addition to that, I don't feel like she has a reliable way to flip down to alter ego and recover, and just kind of like her survivability is a little bit lacking in my opinion. So the most equivalents in the game, if they hit really hard and Captain Marvel has to flip down to heal, it'll take her a couple heals to get back to full life, even though she does have an above average recovery. And because of that, I don't think that her survivability is up there with the top tier S tier heroes. So I'm gonna put her here in the A tier. And then the last hero of the core set is we have Spider-Man Peter Parker. And you guys know that Spider-Man Peter Parker is my favorite hero in Marvel Champions. I'm gonna do my best to be unbiased here, but you guys follow this channel, you guys know that I think Spider-Man Peter Parker is an S tier hero. And once again, whenever it was only the core set out, so just these 5 heroes in a very limited card pool, I do think that Captain Marvel was stronger than Peter Parker Spider-Man. But I think now with our current expanded card pool, I think that Peter Parker Spider-Man is the strongest hero in the core set. We have access to every single card in the game. And I have, whenever I first started playing Marvel Champions, every single tier that I've seen put Peter Parker in the B tier, and I saw a lot of posts, saying that Peter Parker could not defeat the most difficult villains in the game. Like he, in True Soul, he would struggle. I saw a lot of posts like that, and it wasn't until I saw a Drax Gaming video where he played Iron Man against Ronan and really built out the suit that I realized, wait a minute, Peter Parker has amazing economy, has amazing survivability. He can also build out like a pseudo suit and get really, really powerful once he gets all that stuff down, and he can easily survive that early game phase, getting that out. And once he does get all that out, he has an amazing impact and amazing payout in True Solo. So, on this channel, I have videos with Peter Parker Spider-Man defeating expert Venom Goblin with every single aspect, right? So we have aggression in a True Solo playthrough. We have leadership, justice, protection, and even an all basic deck using non-aspect cards for the entire deck. I played against expert Ronan as well with Peter Parker Spider-Man, using a justice deck, a leadership deck, right? We have so many playthroughs with Peter Parker Spider-Man defeating every single villain in the game of Marvel Champions. I definitely think that he deserves to be an S tier hero. His versatility is insane. He has encounter card cancels. He just, the backflip is like one of the most efficient cards in the game. I think it's the best defense event, zero cost defense event where whenever you take any amount of damage from an attack, you can prevent all that damage. And May is the best healing card in the game. It's 1 cost in Alter Ego. You can heal 4 damage as support, so it stays in play forever. So every single time you flip down, you can just exhaust animated heal by 4. And you probably do it twice because the next turn you start in Alter Ego again. Exhaust, you're going to heal by 4. Sorry, I'm going a little bit too deep into Peter Parker Spider-Man, but I mean, I just really think that he is one of the strongest heroes in the game of Marvel Champions, and he can definitely handle himself in True Solo, and he's even better in multiplayer, right, when you have more breathing room. His con, I want to say a con about every single hero, is that he lacks a little bit of thwarting in True Solo because his only thwart card is the Spire Tracers, which you need a minion in play and to defeat that minion in order to remove 3 threat from a scheme. However, because Peter Parker Spider-Man's economy is so high, he can easily afford allies or even thwart events to do the thwarting for him. So I think that that's not really that big of a factor because he easily covers it with his massive economy. Let me know if you guys disagreed with that, but I mean, I think Peter Parker Spider-Man is all of that. Okay, so next we have Captain America here, and I know a lot of people think Captain America is an S tier hero as well. I think that he is an A tier hero. I'm gonna put him here above Iron Man and behind Captain Marvel. So Captain America is a very solid, very well-rounded hero, but I don't think that he has as much of an impact as Captain Marvel, just because his main attack event is a heroic strike, which is 6 damage, and you can stun enemy. That's not the best not the best damage for a 3 cost. The stun is really good. However, the more difficult villains in the game, Venom Goblin, Ronan, and Magneto, all have access or all have some type of way to access Stalwart or Steady, which means that stuns and statuses are not as reliable against those top tier scenarios. So even though Captain America, in my opinion, can defeat a more easy scenario, like let's say Ultron, for example, and Ultron is not like easy, he's just not one of the top 3 villains, right? I think Captain America can defeat Ultron more easily than Peter Parker Spider-Man, but I think both Captain America and Peter Parker Spider-Man can both get 100% win rate on Ultron if you have like an optimized deck and you're playing all out, right? So they can both defeat Ultron, but they'll both struggle a little bit with Ronan. And in my opinion, Peter Parker struggles less with Ronan than Captain America. He struggles less against Magneto and less against Venom Goblin than Captain America, even if Captain America can defeat those more easy scenarios more easily than Peter Parker Spider-Man. I think that Peter Parker Spider-Man also doesn't struggle at all with those more easy scenarios, right? So the most important things are those higher difficulty scenarios where I think that that's where Peter Parker Spider-Man shines more than these other heroes down here. Captain America is definitely stronger than Iron Man. I think that Captain America has more of an impact late game because of her her energy channels, which she can explode to do 10 damage, right? So she can just do a lot more damage than Captain America, and whenever her economy and everything's set up, she just has more of an impact on the board than Captain America. So I think that she's a stronger hero than him. All right, so next we have Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange, since he came out in Marvel Champions, is notorious for being the strongest hero in Marvel Champions, and a lot of people still think he's the strongest hero in Marvel Champions. I personally, if you guys follow this channel, you guys know that I personally do not think he is the strongest hero in Marvel Champions. I still do think he is an S tier hero, so I'm putting him in the S tier. I'm putting him behind Peter Parker Spider-Man. So once again, similar to Captain America, Doctor Strange dominates and destroys easy scenarios, and he destroys standard scenarios. But he will lose to Ronin, Venom, Goblin, Magneto on Expert more often than Peter Parker Spider-Man in my experience. And I have all the playthroughs on my channel, showing that with Doctor Strange, with Spider-Man, Captain America, Captain Marvel. I have playthroughs on all my channels. My experience is built on these playthroughs that I have posted and documented, right? So if you guys disagree, you guys, that's totally valid. Definitely let me know down in the comments, but this is just my personal experience of the game of Marvel Champions. And yeah, I'm pretty, I just don't think that Doctor Strange is the strongest hero in the game. He's still very, very powerful, still deserving of the S tier, right, with his Invocation deck. But in my personal experience playing the Invocation deck, I don't think that it's the most reliable thing, because you have all these, you have the 5 Invocation cards, like face down, and you cannot dictate the order of them, right? So you shuffle them up, and there are ways to go through them more quickly and know which is the last one is going to be in the deck, right? But Doctor Strange, especially early game, he can't dictate what order is going to be in. And even late game, when you're ready to set up damage, you can't specifically have one of them in front of the other, right? There's no way to plan that out. There's no way to manipulate that unless you get super duper lucky. And I do think that that forces a little bit of inconsistency in his kit, even though a lot of people would probably disagree. And I think he relies way too much on sasses, right? All of his strongest cards in his Invocation deck and in his actual kit are all about status effects, right? Like stuns and confuses. And if you're facing a villain like the more difficult villains that have Stalwart or Steady, those are way not as strong. And in multiplayer, status effects aren't as strong either. The toughs are really good in multiplayer, but once again, those hard difficult villains may have ways to do indirect damage. They may have piercing. So there's a lot of different ways that can mitigate the way that Doctor Strange wants to play if he's facing those more difficult scenarios. And he's not the most reliable hero in my experience playing the game against those hard difficulties. So I'll still put him in as S tier. Of course, he's really powerful, but I don't think he's as strong as Peter Parker Spider-Man. All right, so next we have Black Widow here. And Black Widow, I'm going to put her in a C tier. I know a lot of you guys might think this is blasphemous. Black Widow, I do not think is that strong of a hero. I think that there are way too many scenarios in Marvel Champions that counter Black Widow. So she really, I think she shines if she can flip down to Alter Ego and be in hero form, and she wants to set those preparations in play. But too many scenarios put too much pressure when the scenario begins for her to be able to set up those preparations, right? And it's kind of thematic, right? Black Widow wants to set all this stuff up and prepare, but Ronin just hits way too hard from the very beginning. She doesn't have time to set up. Same with Venom Goblin, same with Magneto. And for example, the Collector 1, where Black Widow wants to play, upgrades down, and then they leave play after she triggers the preparation cards. Every single time a prep leaves play, Collector 1, his mechanic, he collects that card and puts it into the collection. And you can lose the game very quickly if a lot of Black Widow's cards go into the collection. So I feel like there's too many scenarios in the game where she struggles so much. And yeah, I think that she has extreme difficulty with a lot of scenarios in the game of Marvel Champions. That being said, she does have a very unique concept where it's cool because you can flip down to Alter Ego. There's many fun Alter Ego builds with her. I just don't think that they can handle the most difficult scenarios in the game. Okay, so next we have Hulk here. So Hulk is a D tier hero. Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I know a lot of you guys already know that. A lot of you guys have said that a lot. Hulk is actually one of my more favorite heroes to play in Marvel Champions, and I'm probably definitely biased there because I just really like Hulk and I think it's really cool. And I don't know, his card art, it just looks really cool to me. I don't know why. Like, he's like ripping up a machine, I think. It's just really cool. But power level wise, I have to be objective. I think he's one of the weakest heroes in Marvel Champions. I do not think that he can defeat every single scenario in the game, but he can defeat a lot of the higher difficulty scenarios if you build your deck perfectly correct and get lucky. He has a shot at it at least. But yeah, there's just way too many things that he has that he struggles with. His hand has a 4 in hero form. He has a negative hero ability, which makes you discard your entire hand at the end of your turn. So it's like a downside. He has 0 Thor, and then his Alter Ego ability, which I think is the biggest, my biggest complaint about Hulk is actually his Alter Ego side, because as Bruce Banner, he only has a hand size of 5, which is terrible, and his Alter Ego ability draws him a card, experimental research, but he had to discard another card from your hand anyways. So it's like you stick with the hand size of 5, and in Alter Ego, he's a genius, so I feel like he should have a lot of resources, right, being a scientist and all that. So yeah, Hulk is definitely one of the weakest heroes in Marvel Champions, and yeah, there's nothing I can do to deny that. So next we have Thor here, and Thor I think goes in a C tier here as well. he is similar to Hulk in that he struggles in having. He's very beefy. He has a lot of hit points, right? Hulk has 18 hit points. Thor has 14 hit points, which is way above the curve still because the average is 10 hit points. But he has a hand size of 5 in Alter Ego, hand size of 4 in hero form, and Thor can increase that hand size with his Asgard support, which gives him +1 hand size in Alter Ego and hero form, which is really good. But it's a 3-cost support. You got to use a whole turn to play that support down, and then all you do after that is to get up to the regular curve. So I think that Thor struggles a lot to build out. But unlike Iron Man, whenever Thor is fully built out, he's not nearly as strong as a fully built out Iron Man, unfortunately. So I do think that he goes here in the C tier. All right, next we have Miss Marvel here, and Miss Marvel, I think that she is, oh man, I'm gonna put her here in the B tier. I may drop her down to high C tier. So a lot of people love Miss Marvel. My personal experience with her is that she has some very fun mechanics, definitely in her kit. Her alter ego actions are really cool, but she is too reliant on those alter ego actions. And when you rely on flipping down alter ego, that gives you less flexibility and less versatility whenever you're playing a game, right? So you guys know I love flipping down to alter ego. That's one of my favorite mechanics, if not the favorite mechanic in Marvel Champions. So like when I'm playing, like for example, Peter Parker Spider-Man, I love flipping down, but Peter Parker Spider-Man does not have to flip down. So I can choose when and where I flip down, and having that versatility is really strong because on a turn where I'm not able to flip down because there's too much pressure on the board, I won't. Miss Marvel, on her hand, I feel like she relies and she kind of needs to flip down in order to have big turns. And even after flipping back up to hero form, she may have tons of cards in her hand, like, 9, 10 cards in your hand. She still cannot impact the board as greatly as an A tier hero or an S tier hero. I just feel like even with that massive flip up to hero form, the impact of her events and the cards that she has in her kit aren't as impactful as these strong heroes here. So she has a little bit of struggle dealing with the board, I guess. So I'm gonna put her, I think she's definitely under the curve of one of the strongest heroes in Marvel Champions. So definitely on the lower end of B tier, and it may possibly drop her down to the upper end of C tier here because of that. All right, so next we have Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man is actually really powerful here. I'm gonna put him here in the A tier. I think he has a very cool mechanic. Let me actually, let's do Wasp first, because I think that Ant-Man is a stronger version of Wasp. Yeah, so okay, I'm gonna just put Wasp here. I think that Wasp is a B tier here. I'm gonna put her right here behind Black Panther. So Wasp and Ant-Man both have 3 forms, and they flip from their alter ego to 2 hero forms, and they have a tiny hero side and a giant hero side. The thing with Wasp is that she wants to rely on her alter ego a lot because she is a genius. And she has a cool alter ego ability with the girl, right, which is a cool alter ego effect. And I feel like that her tiny form is just not very good. It's kind of a waste of a form. And the only reason you want to be in that form is because of specific cards that want you to be in that form. But when using your basic activation, you kind of just want to be in giant form the entire time. And she does not have a reliable way to form flip other than your manual 1 per turn form flip, right? So if Wasp flips to, let's say, tiny form, and if she wants to flip down to alter ego, she can't do that. If she's in giant form, she can either choose to flip down to tiny or alter ego. She can't like flip 2 times, right? So I think that that's where her kit is limited the most. So I think that she is a B tier hero. Ant-Man, I think, is more strong than that because of his ability. He has cards that allow him to just change forms, which is really cool. Each time he changes forms, he gets a powerful response off of that, and he can stay in hero form more sustained than Wasp, right? Because he can just stay in tiny form, flip up to giant form, and then flip down tiny form every single turn. He doesn't necessarily need to access the alter ego as much because his economy is not run on that being in alter ego at all. That being said, Ant-Man does have a hand size of 4 in his giant form, which is a little bit under the curve. Wasp has a hand size of 5 in giant form and also a hand size of 5 in her tiny form as well. But Ant-Man can more easily flip and interchange his forms, so I do think he's a more powerful hero. I'm going to put him here in the A tier behind Iron Man. All right, so next we have Quicksilver. Quicksilver, unfortunately, in Marvel Champions, I'm going to put him in the C tier. I think he's stronger than Black Widow, though. Quicksilver in Marvel Champions is like Slow Silver. That's like, I've heard a lot of people say that as well. I think that's a very good description of the way that he plays. He needs way too many upgrades and supports to be in play for him to actually start to really have a good impact on the board, which is kind of ironic because he's Quicksilver. He's very thematic, so I think that FG did a good job designing him in terms of like his reading mechanic is really cool. And of course, reading is super duper powerful, right? So if you can actually get set up, I mean, there are games with like Steve from Play the Game. I think he does like over 100 damage in a single turn with Quicksilver, because Quicksilver can just ready up non-stop and do so much damage. So when he's fully built out, I mean, he's arguably, one of the strongest heroes in the entire game of Marvel Champions, especially burst damage. But it's just so difficult for him to get built out because he has a stat line of 111 in his hero form, which is just super duper low. And a lot of his upgrades are 2 costs. Yeah, I just feel like it's just too difficult for him to get built out there. And especially in true solo where there's a lot of pressure because you have to do everything yourself. I don't think Quicksilver has that versatility, even though he should, because he can Thor or attack and ready back up. So that is very versatile, but because he needs to be building out in that process, it really limits his versatility. So yeah, I think he's a C2 hero, but I do think he's stronger than Black Widow and Thor. Okay, so next we have Scarlet Witch, the sister of Quicksilver, and I think she's definitely an A2 hero. I'm gonna put her behind Iron Man and in front of Ant-Man. So Wanda is very powerful in Marvel Champions. I think a lot of people say that she's an S tier hero as well. I definitely heard that. I don't think that she's an S tier hero for me because I think that she's a little bit too inconsistent and unreliable for me to put her in the S tier. Because with her Chaos Magic, she revolves around milling the encounter deck and manipulating the encounter deck. Or actually not really, actually yeah, she does with her Chaos Control, right? So basically the amount of boost icons on cards that you flip from the encounter deck, she can change. And depending on what it is, she can do different effects, right? And that's really fun. It's a really awesome design. I think she's one of the best designed characters in the game because of that, and she really feels like chaos, right? She feels like Scarlet Witch. But that being said, I think that limits her power because first off, one of my biggest things, and I think a super underrated thing in Marvel Champions is whenever the encounter deck decks out, you get an acceleration token on the main scheme, and one acceleration token can make or break a game. That is absolutely brutal. And whenever you deck out, the player decks out, you get dealt an encounter card. And getting that extra encounter card is also make or break. It can be make or break because one encounter card makes a huge difference on those higher difficulty scenarios. If you're playing like Rhino or Crossbones, that extra encounter card may not make a difference at all. But if you're facing like Ronin or Venom Goblin or Magneto, one extra encounter card could just be an attack of 10 or like a scheme of like 8, and that could completely destroy the game, right? So for that reason, because she accelerates everything, not only your own player deck because she's drawing you a lot of cards, but also the encounter deck by milling it out, I think that kind of limits her upper limit. But that being said, her upper limit is actually really good. If everything lines up perfectly, she can just demolish any scenario in the game. It's just that I don't think she's the most reliable because of the way that she plays. And she is chaos, so I think that kind of makes sense and is very thematic. All right, so next we have Hawkeye. All right, you guys know this. I'm notorious, so I don't hate Hawkeye the character. I really like the Hawkeye series on Disney Plus. But Hawkeye, in my opinion, is the weakest hero in Marvel Champions, and he's my most disliked hero in Marvel Champions. I think that his kit is just, man, it's just not good. So I'm putting him here behind Hulk. I know there's a lot of Hawkeye lovers. I apologize to Kennedy Hawk here. I know he loves Hawkeye. So Hawkeye has a stat line of 1 Thor, 2 attack, and 1 defense. And then he revolves around his bow. His bow is like everything, right? When you play his arrow events or like all the events in Hawkeye's kit, you need to exhaust the bow in order to play the event. So you can pretty much just play 1 event per turn. Hawkeye can exhaust himself, his character, to ready up the bow so you can play another arrow event. A lot of times people want their character to be the one to get ready, but Hawkeye is actually exhausting himself to ready up the bow. So the thing is, even if you have let's say hypothetically you had 20 cards in your hand and you had a ton of arrow events, you could do so much damage, right? When you play 1 arrow event, you have to exhaust your bow, and then you can exhaust Hawkeye to ready up the bow. You play another arrow event, exhaust the bow, and let's say you have the economy to play 3 more arrow events and do 20 more damage or 20 more threat removal. You can't do anything. Hawkeye literally he just can't do it because you need to ready up that bow over and over again. So unless you play more cards to ready up Hawkeye again so that he can exhaust himself to ready up the bow, you just won't be able to do anything. You won't have a high impact on the board. So he's very much of a tempo hero, so he has to play at a certain tempo, and I think that limits his versatility so much, being forced to play 1 or 2 arrow events per turn and not being able to build out and then burst, right? Like having the burst to do that is really strong in Marvel Champions, and he just can't do that. The reason why I do think he's weaker than Hulk is because, and I've done this on my channel, I defeated expert Magneto playing as Hulk. I don't think Hawkeye can defeat expert Magneto. I think that Hulk can defeat expert Ronin. I've done it on my channel as well. I don't think Hawkeye can do that with any deck, right? I don't think Hawkeye can defeat expert Ronin. Maybe you get like, I don't know, so lucky, like it's like 99% like all luck. But I don't think that Hawkeye, I just feel like he's way too weak of a hero to take down these more typical scenarios. He can't handle the threat from Venom Goblin. He can't handle the damage from Ronin. He's just too limited in the way that his kit works. So I think he is the weakest hero in the game and solidly under Hulk, because Hulk can at least rush and defeat heroes. He at least has the genius trait and alter ego, so he can build out leadership with Moon Girl. But yeah, Hawkeye, yeah, I think that he is pretty weak. But maybe we'll get some more cool arrow events to buff him up later on. All right, so next we have Spider-Woman here, Jessica Drew. And okay, so Spider-Woman, often I see her in the S tier. I think a lot of people think she's very powerful. I know she's a lot of people's favorite heroes. I do not think she is that strong of a hero. If you guys follow my channel, you guys know that I notoriously do not like playing Spider-Woman. I do not like her kit. It's really cool that you can build with her with two aspects, right? I think there's a lot of unique potential behind that. But most of the time, the strongest cards in a deck is that hero's identity-specific cards. And her identity-specific cards are just not that good. They rely way too much on stats effects, and like finesse is like the worst resource generator in the game. It is a two-cost, a two-cost upgrade. You can exhaust to generate a wild resource for only an aspect card. So when you play that and you want to play like one of her own identity-specific cards that aren't an aspect card, like let's say like Captain Marvel, her hero-specific ally, for example, she can't exhaust finesse to generate a resource for that, and it just feels really clunky because I'm getting this resource generator down, but that turn that I'm doing it, I often cannot use it to play another card. And then Spider-Woman also has really bad synergy with basic cards because she wants aspect cards with the way that her kit works with the superhuman agility. She just wants aspect cards, and yeah, I just don't like the way she plays at all. And also, I don't think she can handle the more difficult villains in the game, at least reliably. I do think that she's stronger than Miss Marvel. I think she's stronger than Wasp. I think she's stronger than Black Panther. I don't think she's stronger than She-Hulk. Guys, I have so many playthroughs on my channel defeating Venom Goblin with She-Hulk, and I think that Spider-Woman will struggle extreme. I have a playthrough losing with Spider-Woman against Venom Goblin. She struggles a lot. Even though she can defeat more easy scenarios, because if you play Pheromones, you can stun and confuse the villain in like one turn, which is crazy. So anyone that's susceptible to that is really powerful. But once again, the more difficult villains in the game, Magneto, Venom Goblin, and Ronin, they all have access to Star or Steady in one way or another. So Spider-Woman is a lot more limited against those higher difficulty scenarios, and I think that she is a solid B tier hero. Above the curve, I'm going to use Black Panther as that like middle ground, but definitely not an A tier hero, at least in my experience playing the game of Marvel Champions. All right, so next we have Star-Lord. And Star-Lord is really difficult to rank here. I'm going to go ahead and put Star-Lord here in the upper end of B tier, and I'll put him number 1. So Star-Lord's really weird because his potential and his rushing ability is, it used to be like none other. We'll get into Deadpool a little bit later. I think Deadpool is kind of just the stronger version of Star-Lord, which is a little bit unfortunate because I do like Peter Quill, the character, a lot. But yeah, Star-Lord, he can defeat Ronin in like 1, 2, 3 turns. He can defeat Venom Goblin, same thing, especially if you get really lucky. Even though he can gather enough damage and do all that if things line up, I think that the most reliable way to play him is actually to build out and sustain the board a little bit and then do all that burst damage. And unfortunately, he does not have much survivability other than his support bad boy. But other than that, he doesn't have much ways to survive. He has 1 defense. He has your regular 10 hit points, no like defense events or anything like that in his kit. And he wants to deal himself a lot of encounter cards as well, right? So he's super duper fun, and his potential is like way up there, right? You can play games of Star and you're like, oh my goodness, he's an S tier hero. But I think if you take everything into consideration, I think that his reliability holds him back a little bit. So I'm going to put him at the upper end of B tier because I think that the A tier heroes here are more reliable than Star-Lord, but he definitely has potential to be better than everyone else. But there are some games where you'll be playing him, you'll be like, okay, I'd rather be playing She-Hulk or Spider-Woman or Black Panther just because they're more reliable than Star-Lord. But yeah, so I think B tier and on the high spot in B tier is a good spot for Peter Quill. All right, so next we have Drax here. Drax is he I think he's a D2 hero for me. And I'm going to put him behind Hulk. Okay. I know a lot of people love Drax. There's a lot of Drax fans out here. I want to deeply apologize to Josh from Getting Game. I'm sorry. I think that Drax can be really fun if everything works out perfectly and you're able to play at the tempo that he wants to play. But the way that his kit works, he doesn't have any versatility. And I think that that's kind of the main theme of the way that I view heroes and my tier list here is versatility. And Drax wants to be in hero form because whenever the villain attacks him, you get a vengeance counter, and all of his cards and his identity card revolves around getting vengeance counters on him. And the more that you have, the stronger he is. But then whenever the villain attacks you too much and you're fully built out on vengeance counters, you may have taken way too much damage because you cannot block with an ally to receive vengeance counters. The villain has to attack Drax directly. Whenever that's fully built out, he may need to flip down to recover, and whenever you flip down, he has a forced response where you must discard all the vengeance counters. So you have to somehow get hit a lot and then not need to recover at all, which works really well against the easier scenarios that hit really light, right? You can block all their damage, but Ronin can sometimes hit for 9, 10, 11, 12. I think he's hit me for like 15 plus damage before. Like, Drax cannot block out all that damage unless he chump blocks with the ally, right? And Ronin can get overkill sometimes too, which applies to every single hero in the game. But yeah, I mean, it's just way too difficult for Drax to take attacks to the face and not chump block with the ally. And he's kind of forced to play that way. And because he needs to, or because he cannot flip down to alter ego, right? If you get an obligation, like in Loki and in Hela, there's a lot of these obligations that force you to flip down to alter ego, or else you can't attack anymore. So if you can't attack, you can't win the game, right? So if Drax is forced to flip down, then he loses all the vengeance counters, and then you have to start all over again. So I think that he's just way too clunky, and he's just too streamlined how he wants to play, which limits his versatility. So he's not that powerful in my experience of the game. So I think that he's beneath Hulk here, because Hulk, once again, can defeat expert Magneto. He can defeat expert Ronin. He's done it. I don't know if Drax can do that. I don't think Drax can defeat expert Ronin at all. I don't think he can defeat expert Venom Goblin or expert Magneto. I think that these scenarios are just way too tough for Drax in the way that he wants to play. So even though he can defeat, the easy scenarios more easily than Hulk, Hulk can still defeat those easy scenarios, right? Shout out to Joshi, right, who's playing Hulk against like every scenario in the game. Hulk can defeat a lot of scenarios, and so can Drax. But I think the more difficult scenarios, I'd rather play Hulk if I had to beat them than Drax. So I think that considering every single scenario in the game of Marvel Champions, I think overall Hulk would do a little bit better than Drax. All right, so next we have Gamora. And Gamora, man, a lot of people say Gamora is really powerful. In my personal experience, I don't think she's as powerful. I think she's similar to Miss Marvel here, in where that her kit, it's not as much of an impact as I would like. She has really good small instances of damage. She may be the best hero in having small instances of damage, actually, like in the entire game of Marvel Champions. That's not as good because we want to build out our board and then have like a big burst a lot of times, because a lot of villains punish you otherwise, right? If they have retaliate, Gamora might take a lot of damage, and like Venom Goblin, if you don't defeat his stage 3 in one turn, he'll deal you 3 phase down counter cards, and that would totally wreck the game for most heroes. So Gamora, put her in the B tier. I think she's stronger than Miss Marvel. I think she is stronger than Wasp. I think she's stronger than Black. No, I'm put her behind Black Panther. I think they're very, very close. But I think Black Panther is a little bit better just because he has more economy with his Vibranium. He can build out more easily, and he has a little bit more versatility than the way that Gamora wants to play. Gamora is a very powerful rush hero, very similar to Star-Lord. So if you're playing at a very high tempo, I think Gamora is very good and definitely a lot better than a lot of even like the AG heroes in rushing specifically. But I think that if you need to defeat the more difficult villains in the game, Gamora will struggle a little bit more because those more difficult villains, you either have to have like extreme rush, like playing Star-Lord, or you need to build out the board. And reliably, if you want to defeat them reliably, you will have to build out the board. Yeah, and I think Gamora struggles with building out a little bit just because she relies so much on her events. But definitely a very unique mechanic that fits the most dangerous women in the universe. Okay, so next we have Agent Venom, Flash Thompson. Flash Thompson, a lot of people say he's an S hero, a lot of people say he's an A tier hero. In my personal experience playing him, and you guys may have already known this if you guys follow the channel, I do not think Venom is a very powerful hero in terms of power ranking. I feel there's way too many things that his kit relies on. I think his events are way too expensive for what they do, and then the kicker usually gives them a status effect. And once again, those more difficult scenarios, we don't want cards that have less impact, like less threat removal or less damage for a status effect. We don't want that trade-off for those more difficult scenarios, because those more difficult scenarios often have stalwart or steady. For the easier scenarios, is really good, and he can be super powerful, I'm sure, against like, Crossbones or Rhino, where you can just stun lock or confuse lock them and then just dominate. But against those higher difficult scenarios, I think that he struggles a lot. I think he relies a lot on getting built out, and even though he has good economy with his hero ability, I don't think that it's nearly enough for how expensive his cards are. He has Spider-Man Spider Sense, but it's an upgrade that you have to pay 2 costs for, which I don't think is necessarily worth it, because I'd rather just pay 2 costs for a resource generator than to draw a card whenever I get attacked. There are very few times where drawing a card when you get attacked is better than a straight up resource generator, and that's when the villain attacks you multiple times per turn. But when you're paying 2 costs for something, I want it to be reliable, and I want to be able to do it every single turn. So because of that, I think Venom is a B tier hero, at least in my experience. I think he's stronger than Black Panther, but I'm going to put him here behind Spider-Woman, and I do think that She-Hulk is a lot stronger than Venom and Spider-Woman. Alright, so next we have Groot and Rocket from Galaxy's Most Wanted. Oh man, okay. Groot, I think he's tough. I think at one point in the game, I definitely had him as a B tier hero. I think I was wrong though. I talked to a lot of you guys about that too. I think that I will put him as a C tier hero, and I will say Groot is very underrated. I think that Groot can defeat every single scenario in the game in Marvel Champions on expert mode, right? He can defeat expert Magneto, true solo. He can defeat expert Ronin, true solo. He can defeat expert Venom Goblin, true solo. I think I did expert Ronin, and I think I did expert Venom Goblin too with Groot. But I think they're like 1 hour to like 90-minute games. It was like crazy long. It was very, very difficult. But Groot has the ability to build out. And the main thing with Groot is that you want to be able to flip down to Alter Ego, because he has really big Alter Ego turns, a lot bigger than Miss Marvel. So if I'm playing a scenario that allows me to flip down to Alter Ego, I think that Groot flipping down and coming back up, he gets so many more growth counters. With Ferro Guard, you can also draw a card as well. And then his events have so much impact if you have a lot of growth counters, and they can really impact the board, right? He can swing for 10 damage. He can remove 10 threat from a scheme if you're maxed out on your growth counters. The biggest thing with Groot that holds him back is that he has a force interrupt on hero form. So once again, it's that versatility there, because it's a force interrupt, so you must trigger it. In hero form, whenever he would take any amount of damage, you must remove growth counters equal to that amount of damage, right? So if you could choose, if it was an interrupt that it's not forced, and you could choose to not remove counters to build out those, the growth counters, then I think Groot would definitely be a lot more powerful, even possibly an A tier hero. But because it's a force interrupt, and then that limits the versatility a lot, when you're playing a scenario, you can be less reactive because you have to remove those counters. I think that limits him, and I'm putting him here in the C tier, but definitely on the highest end of C tier, and I may move him up to B tier. But yeah, I think Groot is a little bit underrated. But yeah, I think C tier is a good spot for him for right now. Next we have Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon, I like his kit a lot too. He has these weapon upgrades. He also wants to access his Alter Ego a lot because of his tinkering ability, which you can discard a tech upgrade, and then draw 2 cards, which really improves his economy a lot. In hero form, he has I murder you, where you can draw a card each time you do excess damage to an enemy. Most of the time, that will be for a minion. He's a very fun mechanic. I think that there are some scenarios, like against Ultron, where he's like an S tier hero because he defeats minions very easily, and you can draw a lot of cards. And whenever the minions are 1 hit point, like Ultron Jones, I think Rocket can dominate a scenario like that. But I think he's way too limited. I'm gonna put him in the C tier behind Groot. And yeah, the main reason for that is Expert Ronin, Expert Magneto, Expert Venom Goblin. I have a playthrough on my channel defeating Expert Magneto with Rocket, but we really ignored a big part of his kit and just rely on the fact that he is a genius in Alter Ego, and we played a lot of suit ups and just allied recursion. Same with Hulk, and that was a strategy that we used to defeat Expert Magneto on his channel. I don't know if Rocket can defeat Expert Magneto without that strategy, and that strategy is not strong enough to take him through Expert Ronin. But yeah, in an Expert Venom Goblin, I think he can beat him. He just needs attack events to discard the Advanced Glider if you get it. But yeah, I mean, I think Rocket is a very fun hero and very unique. He's just very limited in true solo. Not really in terms of versatility, I guess, just because he's very squishy with 9 hit points. And then, I don't know, I guess he is a very versatile hero. He just doesn't have that much of impact on the board. I think that's where it kind of, that's his biggest drawback, right? Not having as much of an impact on the board. All right, so next we have Nebula. Nebula I actually like a lot. I think she's very fun. I do think she is she a C tier hero or is she a B tier hero? I think she's a C tier hero. I'm gonna put her. It's hard to say. I'm gonna put her behind Groot and above Rocket. So I think that if you're facing a villain that can be stunned or confused, Nebula is a lot stronger. But I think that she shows a lot against the higher difficulty scenarios. And once again, it's that versatility that is like that biggest thing that's holding her back. She has a, I think it's a force, either force interrupt or force response, where you have to discard all of her techniques and you have to trigger their effects. So you cannot choose when you do it. If you are in hero form, you will have to do that. And if she could just keep the techniques in play, she would be really good and a lot more powerful than the way she is right now. But because it's a forced interrupt or forced response and you must trigger it and you don't have the flexibility to not do it and keep it in play and get the effects, the constant effects of her techniques, I think that limits her a lot. I really like her design though. It's very similar to the villain Nebula. And I love how Fantasy Flight Games designs heroes similar to villains and they give them like the same names for their cards and their techniques. It's really cool. But power ranking wise, I don't think that Nebula is that powerful, so I think C tier here is a good spot for her. I think Groot does better against the average of scenarios because of his because he has such a big impact coming down from alter ego, flipping over to hero form. All right, so next we have War Machine. Oh man, once again, the name of the game is versatility, and War Machine he has I think he's a cool mechanic building those ammo counters, but once again, when you flip down to alter ego, you have to lose all your ammo counters. And the main way, or the easiest way for him to get ammo counters is to flip up to hero form, where you just get 5, right? So it's kind of like you want to flip down to alter ego, because when you flip back up, you get ammo counters, but then you can't save ammo counters if they're on your identity in hero form if you flip down, because then you lose all of them. So with a forced response, right? So the sub that's forced definitely limits the hero a lot more. So I think that War Machine is also a C tier hero. We have a lot of C tier heroes here. I think that he's stronger than Rocket though. I think this is a good spot for him. Yeah, it's really just he needs to access his alter ego to gain those ammo counters, and if he doesn't, it's really tough. So I think there's just too much of reliance on the alter ego for War Machine. But if you are playing a scenario where you can easily access your alter ego and flip back up, I think that he shines a lot more. With his I think that he can be really good, especially with float like a butterfly, because he has an attack and he can do multiple damage for each what's it called, each counter on him. I forgot what the ammo counters, right? For each ammo counter that you have on him, you can take one away. So if you have, like, hypothetically, let's say like 20 ammo counters built up like from the bunker, and then you move it over to him, then you can blow it all up, do tons of damage, and then each instance of damage would be one more if the enemy is confused, because you have float like a butterfly in play. But once again, if the villain can't be confused because they're stalwart, then he won't be able to get that effect, right? So it's kind of like he could be really strong, but then he struggles a lot with the more difficult scenarios, right? That's kind of how most of these heroes are going to line up for me personally. All right, so next we have Vision. I think Vision is a pretty well-designed hero. I think that he also... So he's really cool because he has an intangible form and a solid mass form. And I think that if everything lines up perfectly, where like you get a card that says you can only play this in intangible form or you only play this in solid mass form, if you're in solid mass form when you play the cards, when you need to play the cards that say play only in solid mass form, and everything just lines up perfectly the entire game, I think he's definitely an A tier hero. That being said, overall, I don't think that he is, because he can be clunky if you are in the wrong form and you cannot change forms, and you have a card that says you can only play this card in that specific form. So it's that versatility again, guys. It's that limiting, the limiting factor being that he doesn't have the versatility to counter every single scenario, unless you get lucky and you just happen to be in the form in the situation that you need to play a certain card, right? So if you need to remove threat and ignore a crisis icon, you want to play a stored event and you have to be in intangible form. But let's say like you have to be in solid mass form for some reason to like defeat a minion as well, right? And then you don't have an opportunity to flip to other form or do, I don't know. It's just like if it doesn't line up, then it doesn't work, right? So that's the way that he kind of works. You need things to line up good, and to line up good, then he can be very powerful. But if he doesn't, I think he's more of a B tier hero. I think that he is stronger than Venom. But I think that Spider-Woman is more strong than him. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for Vision here. All right, next we have Valkyrie. Huge shouts to D20 Woodworking. Valkyrie is his GOAT. Valkyrie in Marvel Champions, in my experience, Unfortunately, it's not the GOAT. I'm gonna put her in the D tier. I think that she is actually weaker than Drax here. And I don't know, Valkyrie is so weird because Valkyrie is one of the best minion slayers in Marvel Champs, if not the best one. I think she's really good at defeating strong minions that have like 5 or 6 hit points, and she can ready back up each time as well with her death blow if it's on that minion. But yeah, I just feel like that she's so limited in a way that she plays because I guess maybe because of death blow, right? It just costs way too much to play that to play the upgrade down, that one cost upgrade down. And it's weird because Valkyrie has a hand size of 6 in her alter ego and a hand size of 5 in her hero form. And if you look at all the other heroes, actually Hawkeye has the same thing, but Drax has a hand size of 4 in hero form, Hulk has a hand size of 4 in hero form. So I thought that if you just play Valkyrie normally, she could be very powerful, but it's just something about the way her kit works. It just relies way too much on minions for her to be strong, and she needs to get built out against those minions as well, right? So it's not only having minions in play, but she needs to have her like upgrades and supports that, especially like Dragon Fang, to defeat the minions and Deathglow, right? So I think that she is way too limited in that she needs minions to really do things, and I think that even with like the ultimate like leadership deck, she's not going to defeat Expert Ronin in true solo, or like Expert Venom Goblin or Expert Magneto. And I tried her against Expert Magneto with like a Mighty Avengers like leadership recursion deck and was not able to do it. I don't think I even came close actually, but I really tried it. So once again, I don't think that every hero can defeat every villain in the game with like a crazy leadership deck. I think Valkyrie actually works a lot better in aggression than leadership because of her synergy with minions. So you want to pull minions out, trigger the powerful effects in aggression whenever minions come in play to remove threat and do other stuff. So yeah, I don't think she's that powerful. I think she's stronger than Hawkeye, but not as good as Drax or Hulk. All right, next we have Spectrum here from Mad Titan Shadow. Okay, Spectrum, I think she is actually decently powerful. I'm going to put her in the B tier though. I think she's very average, and I think she's stronger than Vision, but very similar to him. So she also has, she has 3 forms as well. And depending on which form that you're in, she can do different effects, right? She'll have like extra thwart or extra attack or extra defense. But the cool thing with her is that with her speed of light, you can actually change forms if you have that card. So I think she has a lot more versatility than Vision because she can manually change forms and also play, or not manually change forms if she flips up from alter ego to hero form, but she can also play a card which allows her to change forms on top of that, right? So yeah, I think that Spectrum has a lot more versatility than Vision because of that card, but also she's limited in the same way that Vision is limited because if you're not in the right form, then she can't feel clunky on what you need to do, right? If you're in the attacking form and you can't change and you need a thwart, then it'll feel clunky. If you're in the thwarting form, you need to attack and you can't change forms, then it'll also feel clunky, right? So the versatility there, I think, will limit Spectrum. All right, next we have Adam Warlock. And you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, a lot of you guys probably do. Adam Warlock is one of my favorite heroes in Marvel Champs. I think he's super duper cool. I also think he's extremely powerful. And the most underrated card in Adam Warlock's kit, in my opinion, is his Quantum Magic. It's a 1-cost event. You can grab any card in your discard pile and add to your hand. And I love playing this with the pool aspect because Quantum Magic is 1 cost, so you got to spend 1 resource. So it's 2 effective resources, right? If you grab a pool triple resource, you pretty much get refunded an extra resource to play like whatever you need with your hand. I love grabbing Not My Responsibility in the pool aspect too, just because the pool aspect has really strong one-off cards. And if they're in your discard pile, but you can grab them back to your hand with Quantum Magic, it is oftentimes really worth it. And just being able to do that, like grabbing Maria Hill or something like that, like a really strong card, I think it's super powerful. So Adam Warlock, the Avatar of Life, he can include cards from every single aspect in his deck, or from 4 aspects, because with the pool aspect now there's 5, so he only do 4 of them. But yeah, I mean, I think he's super powerful, and I think he's one of the most versatile heroes in Marvel Champions, which is why I think he is an A tier hero. But we're in A tier. I think he's stronger than Iron Man. I don't think he's as strong as Captain America or Captain Marvel. So Adam Warlock can build out the board, or sorry, Adam Warlock needs to build out his board. He needs to get the Mystic Senses, similar to Iron Man and a lot of other heroes that we mentioned. They need to build out their board, and that's where he's lacking the most. But once he is built out, he's like Iron Man. He's just so powerful. You can trigger the Battle Mage ability and then draw 2 cards with Mystic Senses, which is just insane because you also have board presence with Battle Mage as well. And yeah, I mean, he can include the Sorcerer Supreme in his deck as well. Get the +1 hand size in a hero form. Just super powerful, super powerful hero. So I think that Adam Warlock is stronger in the early game than Iron Man because he can he doesn't have a hand size of 1 in his hero form. But then also when he's fully built out, he's also extremely powerful as well. So I think A tier is a good spot for Adam Warlock. All right, next we have Nova. Nova, I think, is another B tier hero who can be extremely powerful, like an S tier if things line up. But most of the time, I think that he relies a little bit too much on luck. I'm gonna put him. In front of Wasp. No, I'm putting behind Wasp in front of Miss Marvel here. So you really want to trigger the Unleash Nova Force with Nova. And with that card in play, each time Nova defeats a minion or a side scheme, he can ready back up and he can draw a card. So that is just insanely powerful, but you need to have minions and side schemes in play. So if you're facing a villain and you just get super duper unlucky, and the villain every single encounter phase just gets an activation, right? Like if they get an advance so they scheme, or an assault so they attack, but just constantly, then there'll never be side schemes or minions, and Nova can't trigger his stuff to have like really big turns, and he may not be able to do anything at all. So he really wants all the stuff to like clear it all in one turn and like do crazy stuff. But if he doesn't get that lined up, I think that he will struggle a little bit. And I think that his board presence is very like, it's small increments. It's really good because it refreshes with the Unleash Nova Force. But if the Unleash Nova Force is not there and you just have to like do this one thing, like let's just say for example, let's say there's 15 threat on the main scheme, for example, right? Nova is going to have a lot of problems removing all that threat. Let's say you need to do 20 damage to just a villain and there's no minions or side scheme in play. Nova will have trouble dealing that 20 damage. So I think that limits the way that he wants to play a little bit, and it limits his versatility in that he wants to have minions and side schemes in play. So yeah, I think B tier, he's still a solid hero, but he's definitely not an A tier in my opinion, although he has an A tier, S tier potential if everything lines up with a bunch of side schemes and a bunch of minions. All right, next we have Ironheart. And Ironheart, I think, is definitely stronger than Iron Man, although I do like playing Iron Man more than Ironheart. I like the simplicity in his kit. Ironheart is kind of like the more improved, more streamlined version, although in my opinion a little bit less fun. She does also have to build out, and she struggles a little bit in the early game building out, but definitely not as much as Iron Man. And whenever she is fully built out, she is just insanely powerful. I think she is stronger than Captain America, actually, similar in that build out type of hero with Adam Warlock and Iron Man, but she's a lot easier to build out. And then she gets a payout whenever she gets her progress counters to progress to the next hero card. It's her hero ability where you can discard a progress counter and then do 2 damage to enemies. So you could just, if you have like, let's say hypothetically 20 progress counters, you can just discard 20 of them and then deal 40 damage to an enemy. That is just insane damage, right? Just discarding all that stuff and doing tons of damage. I think it's really good. So I think she's a very powerful hero because of that. In her fully built out state, and she really take her time build out and control the board. She has a lot of board presence as well, because similar to Iron Man with her upgrades, she can remove threat and do damage every single turn, even if you don't play any cards from your hand. So having that on demand, I think, is really good. All right, so next we have Spider. We have SPDR. SPDR is once again also in that same line of Ironheart, Iron Man, and Adam Warlock, where she really needs to get built out to do anything. She has a hand size of 4 in her alter ego and a hand size of 3 in hero form, which is definitely not very good, but her mechanic is very fun because each one of her tech upgrades, if you get them out, that you can also exhaust them to generate a wild resource with her sync ratio ability in hero form. So yeah, that is really good. Yeah, I think that she's very powerful whenever she's built out, but I think that she struggles in that building out phase more than Iron Man and a lot of the A tier heroes. So I'm gonna put her here in the B tier, and I think that she's stronger than Spider-Woman, actually. I think she's very powerful. She just has to get built out. And once she is fully built out, I mean, there's not many villains that can defeat Spider. But the problem is, can she get there? And if you're lucky, you can get there against the hard to difficult scenarios. Against the easier scenarios, I think it's not too much of a problem to get there. It's just because like Expert Ronin or Expert Venom Goblin deals too much pressure. But yeah, once she is built out, I think she's pretty powerful. All right, so next we have Spider-Ham here. Okay, and this is going to be our first hero to usurp Peter Parker Spider-Man from the S tier. So I think Spider-Ham Peter Porker is currently, from the heroes that we looked at, the strongest hero in the game. And yeah, I mean, he is just insane. He's extremely versatile. He has insane survivability and insane economy. I said Spider-Man Peter Parker has the best defensive event in the game, in my opinion, the backflip. It's a 0 cost event, so you can play for free. When you take any amount of damage from an attack, you can prevent all that damage. backflipping out of the way, jumping out of the way, right? But that's an event. So you don't have it in your hand in the time that you want it. You won't be able to prevent the damage, right? Peter Porker, he has cartoon physics, which is a 1-cost upgrade. You only pay 1 for it. Put it in play. And then anytime you would take any amount of damage, you can just discard it, prevent all the damage except for 1. That is insane because you can just have it in play. And he has 2 copies of them. It's not even max 1 per player. So you have them both in play. And just anytime that you would die, just trigger that effect, discard it, and then you like won't die instead. So Inspire him is insane because of that. His tune counters are also completely insane because there is no cap. So hypothetically, you can have like 30 tune counters. When you have that, you can use one to you can discard a tune counter to generate a wild resource. So like you can like pay for everything in your hand if you build out enough tune counters. He's just so versatile, has so much economy, has so much survivability. He has 12 hit points. He has a recovery of 5. That's insane. And then each time you recover an alter ego, you also get a tune counter as well. So just so much benefits to the way that he works. Yeah, he's an extremely powerful hero. He also has an encounter card cancel as well in the I Don't Think So. Just definitely one of the strongest heroes in the game of Marvel Champions and definitely deserving of being an S tier hero. And in my opinion, he definitely was the strongest hero in the game of Marvel Champions for a very long time. If you guys follow the channel, you guys know which hero I'm going to put above him. But I won't say anything yet until we get there. All right, so next we have Sinister Motives. So we have Ghost Spider and Miles Morales. Ghost Spider, in my opinion, is a solid B tier hero. And I'm going to put her behind Miss Marvel here. And I think that she is solid. Once again, it's versatility. I think she lacks so much versatility. If she plays the way she wants, she is so strong. A tier, even S tier. But she wants to play hero responses and hero interrupts. And then she wants to ready back up with Disney reflexes and play off of that, right? If you get a nasty alter ego obligation, which forces her to flip down to alter ego, then she won't be able to do any of that. All of her cards are hero responses or hero interrupts, and Ghost Spider just really needs to be doing her thing in hero form. And being forced to be in hero form, being forced to ready, there are encounter cards that prevent you from readying with hero abilities, so that could ruin Ghost Spider as well. And just being forced to play that way really limits her because she is so streamlined. But once again, if she's able to play that the way that she wants to, she's insanely powerful. It's just the limit on her versatility puts her in the bottom of the B tier here. So next we have Spider-Man Miles Morales. And Miles is definitely an A tier hero. I think that he is right behind Captain America. No, I think Adam Warlock is more powerful actually. I think he's definitely around Iron Man level. I'm going to put him above Iron Man here. So Miles, it's a little bit hard for me to evaluate with that, but Miles relies a lot on stuns and confuses, and he's insanely powerful. He has very efficient cards, and then they often trigger his Venom Blast or his Spider Camouflage ability on his hero card, which allows you to confuse the enemy, you get a tough status card, and the Venom Blast allows you to stun an enemy and do 2 damage to it. So that is super duper powerful. Even if you don't get the stuns and confuses off, he still has very efficient events. So he demolishes the easier scenarios that can be stunned and confused like none other. I think that he's like the strongest hero against non-star or steady enemies, just because he can easily stun and confuse lock them. And when he flips down to Alter Ego, you can shuffle Miles cards back into your deck and just get more reliability and more consistency on those stuns and confuses. But once again, the more difficult villains in the game of Marvel Champions have access to star or steady, so Miles is a lot less effective against them. And Arachnobatics is one of his strongest attack events, where he can do up to 8 damage if the enemy is stunned and confused. But the enemy is stalwart, they can never be stunned or confused, so it's never going to do 8 damage against those villains, and it's kind of a dead card. So for that reason, Miles is a solid, super strong hero, but I don't think he's an S tier hero because of his limits against the higher difficulty scenarios. All right, so next we have Colossus here. Okay, Colossus, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated heroes in Marvel Champions. He has a handsets of 6 in hero form. Sorry, handsets of 6 in alter ego, and handsets of only 4 in his hero form. That being said, Colossus is an A tier hero in my opinion. I'm putting him above Ant-Man. So the way that Colossus works is that you have to flip down to alter ego because he has this card called Armor Up. Whenever the villain activates, like if they scheme, you can play Armor Up, flip over to hero form, then the villain will attack you instead. When you flip to hero form, Colossus has a response that gives him a tough status card. So when they attack you, you just lose a tough status card. insanely powerful. So you flip down, not only get access to the hand size of 6 in your alter ego, but you also trigger all of your alter ego actions as well. So Colossus wants to be kind of flipping down almost every single turn, drawing back up to 6 and recurring the armor ups and playing them. So basically the way he wants to play is maneuvering around armor ups, and I have played these on my channel, defeating Expert Ronin and Expert Magneto. Playing as Colossus, I have not faced Expert Venom Goblin, but I believe Colossus will have no issue taking down Expert Venom Goblin. He also has statuses in his kit, but he doesn't rely on them. So even if you are facing a villain that can't be stunned, Colossus will have no issue dealing with them. He's just insanely powerful, but you really have to know the correct way to pilot him, and you really have to flip down to alter ego to take full advantage of his kit. If you're playing him like protection and just staying in hero form the entire game, I think he'll probably be like, I don't know, D tier? No, maybe like C tier. But if you are able to do that, I think he's insanely powerful. Is he stronger than Scarlet Witch? No, I think I'm gonna put him behind. No, I think I'm gonna put him right here. Actually, I think no, I'm gonna put him behind Scarlet Witch. I think it's definitely super duper close on Colossus and Scarlet Witch, but I think that Scarlet Witch has a little bit more versatility in that she doesn't need to flip down to alter ego, but Colossus can stay down alter ego because of the armor up, right? So I think he's definitely very, very powerful and definitely deserving of being an A tier hero. All right, next we have Shadowcat here. Shadowcat, oh man, okay, so a lot of people rate Shadowcat as very, very high. Shadowcat to me is very, very similar to Ghost Spider, and I think she's stronger than Ghost Spider, but she really wants to be doing one thing, which is defending in the villain phase, because in her phase form, if she defends, she'll take no damage from that attack, which is really, really powerful. But if you're facing Ronin or Venom Goblin or Magneto, who can all activate multiple times per turn, if they attack you and you're in phase form, you defend it. She has a forced response where after you defend or attack, Shadowcat must flip over to her solid mass form. So when she's in her solid mass form, she can take damage from an attack. So if they attack again, then she will take a lot of damage, and she only has 9 life. If she takes that attack, she may just die in one hit against some more difficult scenarios, but she does have ways. If you can play an interrupt, that's an attack or defense, she can flip forms whenever you play that, because it's an interrupt, so it happens before attack, so she can flip back over to phase form. But when you do that, you're losing cards in your hand that you can play during the player phase or use as resources during the player phase, right? So you're losing economy for your player turns. So if you do that every single turn, Shadowcat has way weaker player turns that have less impact, and oftentimes she just can't really do much in the player phase. I think the main problem with a hero like Shadowcat is similar to Ghost Spider in that, but a little bit different than Ghost Spider, because Ghost Spider can just chump block, but Shadowcat wants to defend attacks herself, and she gets a lot of value from it. But because of that, you get less value from allies and chump blocking, and she has less economy playing that way as well. So I think that she is very limited in her versatility because she wants to do that, and she is a very squishy hero as well. So if an enemy actually gets a tough hit through, she'll have to flip down to alter ego, and it'll be a little bit difficult for her to recover back up. So I do think that she is a B tier hero, still solid, but definitely not an A tier or above hero. Will I put her above? I think she's stronger than Miss Marvel though, so I'll put her right here in the B tier. All right, next we have Cyclops. Oh man, okay, so you guys know, if you guys haven't followed this channel, I think that Cyclops is an S tier hero. I think he's even stronger than Peter Parker's Spider-Man. I'm putting him right here in the S tier. And Cyclops is very powerful because of his alter ego ability, where you can include X-Men allies from any aspect in your deck when you're deck building for him. So he's pretty strong in protection, leadership, justice, and in aggression and the pool aspect, because no matter which aspect you select or declare as your main aspect, you still have a bunch of allies from every single aspect, and the X-Men allies are so powerful. Yeah, Cyclops is just one of the strongest heroes and one of the most versatile heroes in the game because of those different allies from different aspects providing different things, right? You can get tough status cards from Polaris as a green protection X-Men ally. You can have a lot of, you can have Sunfire from aggression. He's an X-Men ally for aggression, which has a very powerful effect to discard attachments from the villain. He can just do so many different things with all those different aspects. And his versatility is just off the charts. One of my easiest wins on Expert Ronin was playing as Cyclops. Yeah, that was just like a super duper easy game. We just controlled the scenario the entire way through. And yeah, Cyclops is just super duper unstoppable. I have a game with Cyclops defeating, who did we play? We played Apocalypse 1, which is a fairly difficult scenario, but with the 3 module sets from Mr. Sinister. So we gave him flight, super strength, and telepathy. So he had overkill the entire game. And Cyclops has allies, right? So the overkill was no issue because of his versatility. And then we also played the Collector. This was a subscriber request. So we played the Collector with Cyclops, and Cyclops dominated the Collector 1. It didn't matter that when you have to toss a tactic upgrade, it goes into the collection with the Collector 1's mechanics. That does not matter at all because Cyclops doesn't have to play those tactic upgrades. He can still survive without them. He's just super powerful and versatile in the way that he wants to play. And he gets extra economy with his alter ego ability as well. All right, so next we have Phoenix, Jean Grey. I think Jean Grey is also a very powerful hero. I think she goes in the B tier here for me. She is gonna be, I'll put her here behind, I'll put her above Spider-Woman here. So Phoenix is one of the few heroes, if not the only hero, to have a Thor stat of 3 whenever she starts the game off without any upgrades or supports. That is super duper good because in the beginning of the game, you usually want to be thwarting anyways. And whenever Phoenix is unleashed, she has 3 attack instead. And that is also very powerful, and a lot of the cards in her kit revolve around her being unleashed and they have more of a benefit. She has a card where you can stun and confuse an enemy if she is in her unleashed form. So against non-star or steady enemies, she is extremely powerful. So she's deserved to be here in the B tier. That card isn't as good, obviously, against the higher difficult scenarios like Expert Ronin or Magneto or Venom Goblin that have access to steady or stalwart. One downside to Phoenix is that Dark Phoenix, her nemesis, is very, very rough. And it does also provide a second loss condition for the game for the player. But I think that's not that bad. If Phoenix is built out enough, I think she can handle her Nemesis set. If she gets it really early, it could be a game changer, but I still think that she can handle it. I think she is a very powerful hero in her own right, and I think B tier is a solid place for her. All right, next we have a Storm, the soul sister of Phoenix, and I think she's also a solid B tier hero. I think that Storm has a lot of versatility actually, so I think she goes above Phoenix. And I'm going to put her right behind She-Hulk here. I really do think She-Hulk is a very powerful hero. So Storm is also very, very good. She has her weather supports. I think it's a really fun mechanic. She can flip them. She has cards to flip them as well. So just a lot of versatility, a lot of small pings and things that she can do. But she also has burst damage with her main attack event as well. If Thunderstorm is in play, it does even more damage. So it's super duper good. So definitely Storm has the versatility and all-around abilities to do everything in the game. The only downside to Storm is that if you get stuck on a weather that you don't want to be in, that could be a little bit rough. You can't change what weather it is in a limited amount of time, so that could be a little bit limiting if you're stuck on the wrong one. And then Storm also needs to get built out a little bit, right? She has a stat line of 1-2-1, which is not the best. You need to get a lot of her upgrades and supports in play to really maximize what she wants to do. So I do think that she struggles a little bit in the early game, and that's kind of what's holding her back here in the B tier. All right, and then next we have a Wolverine here. Wolverine is a very powerful hero. I do think that he also goes here in the B tier, and I'm going to put him in front of She-Hulk here. So Wolverine, I think, is a very strong hero in his own right. I think he's really good at rushing, very similar to Star-Lord. But once again, against the more difficult villains in the game, the most reliable way to defeat them is to build out your board. And Wolverine's economy is not that good. His economy is very, very good for attack events, right? For rushing, because with his claws, you can exhaust a claws, take damage equal to the cost of an attack event, and play it for free. But if you need to play a Thor event or an ally, he does not have any resource generators or any cost reductions for those type of cards, right? So he's really good at rushing, but when you build out the board, he's still really good because he has good survivability with his healing factor, healing 2 damage every single turn. He's very thematic, but I think that he struggles a little bit more to build out. So I think B tier is a good spot for him. I think some of these are in the wrong order. Let me fix this a little bit. We're going to put Gambit up here. Rogue is here because this is next evolution. Angel's from the next evolution, which is the next wave. We'll put Angel back here. Deadpool is the last one of next evolution. And then we have Age of Apocalypse here. Let's change this a little bit. Okay, I think that is more of the correct order. Okay, so next we have Gambit and Rogue. Okay, let's do Gambit first. So Gambit, I think he's solid. I'll put Gambit right here. I think I'm gonna put him above Black Panther, but behind Agent Venom here. So the way that Gambit works is that he has really good cards in his kit for specific things. He has a really strong alter ego Thor called the Creative Charm, where you can confuse the villain as well. He has a very strong defensive event with his natural agility, where you can block up all damage if you have enough charge counters on Gambit, and he can do a lot of damage as well with his charge counters with his attack events, with Throw the Card and Royal Flush. So he can play very well in aggression, or justice, or leadership, or protection, but whichever aspect that you choose to play Gambit in, I feel like the other cards in his kit are kind of dead cards now. So if you're playing him in like protection, for example, you're almost never going to want to flip down to Alter Ego, and the Creative Charmer may not ever come into play or be a factor because you want to be in your hero form the entire time, triggering like, let's say, perfect defense or like whatever protection setup that you have. So I feel like a lot of the cards in this kit are wasted depending on which route that you choose to play him in. So although he's not streamlined because he can play multiple different ways, the way you choose makes the other cards more irrelevant, I guess, if that makes sense. So because of that, I don't think that he's the strongest hero in the game, just because whichever route that you pick, he has a lot of dead cards with the other synergies, but he does have versatility to play any type of way, which is very fun and cool. Next we have Rogue here, and I think Rogue's main thing for me is that her economy is a little bit lackluster in my opinion. I feel like she has a lot of difficulty playing a bunch of her cards, and I do think that in true slow she's not as good as a multiplayer because she can never attach touch to another hero, so she can never gain stalwart, and some of her cards like her superhuman adaptation can look through any other player's discard power, including her own, but it would be really cool with other players because you can get one of their events, but she can't do that if you're playing true solo, so I think she is a little bit more limited there. Put her also in the B tier. I think she's definitely still solid because she is an X-Men, but not as strong as Shadowcat, and not as strong as Ghost Spider either. So I'll put Rogue here last in the B tier. All right, so next we have Next Evolution, which is the second to last wave that has come out so far. And Cable is one of the heroes in the Next Evolution big box expansion. And you guys know this if you guys haven't followed this channel. In my opinion, Cable is the strongest hero in Marvel Champions. I'm putting him here, number 1 in the S tier. And Cable, it's weird that Cable is here because I feel like that he is a little bit streamlined in the way that he wants to play. He wants to thwart outside schemes, but there is no scenario in the game that punishes Cable for clearing a bunch of side schemes like that. And a lot of people have told me Hela does that because if you get side schemes in a victory display, Hela powers up. Guys, Cable powers up way more than Hela does when you get side schemes in a victory display. Hela has more scheme, more attack, and more hit points, and some of her cards do a lot more nasty effects, but Cable has ways to counter them because he has upgrades that can prevent the main scheme from popping. He has an upgrade to prevent all the damage with his telekinetic force field. He just has so many powerful cards in his kit. Mind Skin can do so much threat remove. It can remove like 10 threat in one turn. It's just, Cable's all about piloting him and figuring out when to clear off the side schemes and when to ramp up, because his telekinetic blast can do like 15 damage depending on the amount of side schemes that you have in the victory display. And yeah, I mean Cable, I have Cable versus Hela playthroughs on my channel, and I do not think that Cable struggles against Hela as much as he does against like Ronin, Venom Goblin, and Magneto. And he does not struggle against Ronin, Venom Goblin, or Magneto. I've never played such easy games against those high difficulty villains than with Cable, and I have all that documented on the channel. I have a playthrough with Cable defeating a Ronin Expert 2, Standard 2 with the Infinity Gauntlet, and Cable just demolished that scenario. That was my one and only playthrough with it, and Cable easily took it down. I've had really bad luck too, because we had 2 overkill boost cards on the encounter deck back to back, and we peeked at it, I think with blindfold or something like that, so we knew they were coming, but we couldn't prevent the overkill, so we had to take the overkill, and Cable still dominated that scenario, looking at the encounter deck with blindfold's effect and not being able to change the overkill outcome. So yeah, Cable is just completely insane. I think that he can dominate every single scenario in the game more easily than almost every hero. For example, Doctor Strange, I think, can defeat Hela more easily than Cable, but Cable defeats Magneto, Ronin, and Venom Goblin more easily than Doctor Strange, and Cable does not struggle with Hela. I think Cable can defeat Hela very consistently, if not at a 100% win rate, if you play that scenario correctly and carefully. So yeah, Cable is definitely all that. He is the strongest hero in the game of Marvel Champions. In my opinion, he's the most consistent hero because his alter ego ability, Soldier X, allows you to grab any side scheme in your deck or discard power and put it into play whenever you start a game. So you can, with 100% with absolute certainty, get whichever side scheme that you want to start the game off. And if you clear it, you can get a resource generator, you can get an ally, you can get whatever you want or need for that specific scenario. So Cable is so powerful, so reliable, and super duper consistent. I think he's definitely worthy of being the strongest hero in Marvel Champions, an S tier hero. All right, next we have Domino. I think Domino is definitely a super duper solid hero. She's going to go here in the B tier for me. I think she goes, I think above Spectrum, Spider-Woman, above Phoenix. She's actually pretty high up. I think she'll go right here, right behind She-Hulk here in the B tier. I think Domino is a very strong hero. She has not as much of an impact on the board as I would like. Her events don't do as much threat removal or damage, but she has so many different small pings, which is really good. And her ability to peek at the top card of your deck, I think it's just insane. In the deck manipulation from discard power in the deck, and just the cards that she has is really, really strong as well. So that's a very strong and powerful ability. I don't think that she has as much of a board impact as a lot of other heroes, which you will need for those higher difficult scenarios. But if you play at a solid tempo, I think she is insanely powerful, probably like A tier, S tier, if you are facing a villain that is able to get defeated playing at a specific tempo, like doing damage every single turn, doing threat move every single turn. She definitely control everything and do damage in the same process. All right, next we have Psylocke, and Psylocke I think is definitely an A tier hero. She is very powerful. She has a hand size of 6 in her hero form. Sorry, hand size of 6 in her alter ego, and a hand size of 4 in her hero form. However, she starts the game with 2 permanent resource generators that are already in play and on the table. So if you have a hand size of 6 and you flip over to hero form, you have 2 more resource generators that you can use, and like that's like 8 potential resources that you can use. So that is super powerful. If you can flip down to alter ego reliably and then flip back up to hero form, she is so powerful in that way with so much economy. And she can easily flip down to alter ego because she has so many confuses in her kit. If you are facing a steady star villain, she's not going to be as powerful. But if you're facing steady, she has so much confusing that she can still easily confuse lock a steady villain. It's just for the star villains, she's not going to be as good because she won't be able to access the alter ego as much, which is what's limiting her from the S tier in my opinion. But still definitely an A tier hero and very powerful. I'm going to put her here above Miles Morales, but not as strong as Adam Warlock, just because I do think Adam Warlock does better against Expert Ronin, Venom Goblin, Magneto, the more difficult scenarios. Next we have Angel here. Angel is also super powerful. I think that playing at a high tempo, I mean, he is just so good, and it's crazy because he can control the board, and he makes you feel like, what else should I do? I guess I'll just put on damage because he can do so much damage. His good economy with his techno-organic wings as well. I'm going to put Angel also in the A tier. I don't think he's as strong as these other heroes though, because I feel like that quick tempo actually limits him a little bit. And when I play him, I actually kind of feel like I want to slow down a little bit and really catch my breath and build up my board and just control a little bit better. So I think that it's kind of weird the way that he wants to do that, and he's really good at doing that. But yeah, I don't think that he builds out as strong as the other heroes in the game, as strong as the other heroes that are above him, I mean. But he's definitely very powerful, and his synergy with aerial cards is really good. Next we have X-23 here. X-23 I think is a solid hero. I'm going to put her in the B tier, and I'm going to put her, I think, behind Storm. I'm going to put her here in front of SPDR and behind Storm. So once again, it's the versatility that really limits X-23 in my opinion. If you're able to play X-23 exactly how she wants to play, definitely an A tier hero, right? She's super powerful because she wants to get a lot of readies. She wants to impact the board with her basic activations, and a lot of encounter cards counter basic activations or counter readying. So whenever that happens, she's a lot more limited. And I do think that Honey Badger, her identity specific ally, is an extremely powerful ally and a very good card, and super duper fun Voltron and building out Honey Badger, because each time Honey Badger takes a damage, including consequential damage, you can ready up X-23. However, her obligation can never be removed from the game, and each time you get that obligation, you lose Honey Badger. So Voltron Honey Badger is not a consistent strategy for X-23, because if you put all these upgrades on Honey Badger and then you lose her, you discard all those upgrades, which feels really bad. So she is very powerful in her own right, but I think that she's a little bit limited in her versatility because she wants to use her basic activations in that specific type of way. So next we have Deadpool, and Deadpool is also a very difficult hero for me to rank. He is similar to Star-Lord in that he can definitely feel like an S tier hero a lot of the times, especially if you're rushing with him against Expert Ronin or Expert Venom Goblin or Expert Magneto. He can easily defeat those scenarios in like 3 turns, just getting his max effort cards and his discards fire and just like putting on a bunch of damage with the symbiote suit. However, I do not think that that is the most reliable way to play Marvel Champions through Rush, because if you get unlucky and you draw the wrong cards at the wrong time, let's say he gets 2 maximum efforts and 2 discards is fire in his opening hand, then he's kind of like messed up for the entire game, right? He can't really do anything until he deck cycles again, because his alter ego ability won't be able to get him those cards intuited back to his hand. So I think he relies a little bit too much on luck. Not necessarily like you needing good luck, but you just can't have bad luck, right? You kind of need average to above average luck in order to do really well with Deadpool. And I think that a lot of scenarios counter him a lot, right? So if you're playing like Magneto, he has his metal shards as an encounter card, which would deal 1 damage to each character you control. So if Deadpool already died, right, and he flips over to Alter Ego with his hero ability, the Regenerate Degenerate, where you flip over to Alter Ego, when you would die, set your hit point down to 1, and you get metal shards. If Deadpool dies in Alter Ego, he's actually defeated, and then the player will lose the game. Same with Ultron, he has the Concussive Blast, which will deal 1 damage to each character you control. Ronan has like the Rogue Vessel, which will also deal 1 damage and can affect the Alter Ego and do a damage to Alter Ego. So stuff like that will really counter Deadpool. So I think Deadpool is overall an A tier hero, and I'm putting him here behind Captain Marvel. He's still super duper powerful, but a little bit less consistent against the more difficult scenarios if they counter him specifically, and he can't rush if he gets really unlucky with his hands and with the encounter deck, right? So he just kind of has to get a little bit lucky for that to work, and for that reason I don't think that he deserves to go in the S tier here, but still definitely super duper powerful and can feel S++ tier if everything works out, and you can just easily rush like Expert Ronin in like 10 minutes, which I have done on this channel. All right, so next we have Magic here. And Magic is the start of Age of Apocalypse, the last wave that has come out so far in Marvel Champions. Magic is also another A tier hero. I'm going to put her behind Psylocke for sure. And I think I'm going to put her, I'm going to put her right behind her brother Colossus. And I know a lot of you guys might be thinking, why is Colossus so high up? I really think that he is so powerful, being able to flip down to Alter Ego through Stalwart and Steady and play armor up to prevent the villain from scheming. I think that's just like one of the most powerful things in the game of Marvel Champions, being able to flip down through Steady and Stalwart. That just adds so much versatility to his kit. And for Magic here, Magic is also one of the most versatile heroes in Marvel Champions. You can play with the top card of your deck face up the entire game if you're in hero form. So she's just super powerful. The only thing lacking for Magic, in my opinion, is that her events are a little bit lackluster. She doesn't do as much damage or remove as much threat as I would like, but she can also stun and confuse. So she's very, very good against enemies that can be stunned and confused, so they're non-star steady enemies. But against the more difficult villains in the game, I do think that Magic struggles a little bit more than the heroes above her. And then next we have Bishop. Bishop is another S tier hero in my opinion. I think that he's stronger than Cyclops, but not as strong as Spider-Ham. He is insanely powerful. He does not rely on stats at all, and whenever you flip down to Alter Ego, his ability Temporally Displace allows you to get a temporal card from discard pile and add to your hand, not even into the deck, straight into the hand, which is so good because a lot of Bishop's cards have the temporal trait, but more importantly, his double resource also has a temporal trait. So you can flip down to Alter Ego, get a double resource from your discard pile, add it straight to your hand, and play an expensive ally, support, or upgrade if you want to from your Alter Ego. So that is just insane economy. He has so much synergy with resource cards. He has very good defense with his energy conversion and his uniform. That's just such a strong way to heal in hero form, and also to prevent overkill damage, because you can mitigate the damage to 3 with his energy conversion ability, and you can add resource to your hand with his hero ability as well. So just a super duper powerful hero. When I played Expert Ronin with Bishop, that was also one of the easiest games that I've ever had against Expert Ronin. So yeah, Bishop is definitely all that. He is super duper powerful, and his burst damage is probably the best of like any hero in Marvel Champions, right? So his supercharge is this upgrade, you just play it, and then you can put resources in it and build it out. And if you discard with its max with 4 energy counters on it, Bishop gets +8 to his basic attack. So you can have both of them in play for 1 basic attack, discard them both, and a Bishop can attack with his basic attack stat of 2, +8, so it's going to be 18 damage with 1 attack. Absolutely crazy. It's on demand because those cards are already in play. So yeah, Bishop is super powerful, definitely deserving of being an S tier hero. I think he's stronger than Cyclops, not as strong as Spider-Ham, just because I think Spider-Ham is a little bit more consistent and more reliable with that survivability with the cartoon physics, and the toon counters just building up instead of drawing into resource cards like Bishop needs to. Let's move on to the next hero, which is going to be Iceman here. And Iceman, I think, is a very fun hero. I love his freeze mechanic, where each time he touches an enemy, he can give them a frostbite. So if you defend the enemy's attack or attack them with a basic activation, then you can attach a copy of frostbite to them. They have -1 scheme, -1 attack. I think the mitigation for the enemies, for the villain in particular, to mitigate their scheme stat is really good to allow him to flip down. He can also cancel an activation with Frozen Solid, which is super duper good. I'm going to put him solidly here in the B tier. and I'm gonna put him behind these guys. I'm put it in front of Gambit here in the B tier. Super strong. However, I do think that crowd connect perception. So Iceman wants to ready a lot in order to attach more frostbites, but he does not have a reliable way to ready in his kit. The crowd connect perception is his only way to ready, and it's not reliable because you need the top card of your deck to be an ice card, and if it's not, Iceman does not get that ready. So having a reliable on-demand ready would make Iceman a lot more powerful, but although crowd connect perception is on demand, it's not very reliable. And the other thing with Iceman is that I think his economy is a little bit lacking for what he wants to do. A lot of his cards are just way too expensive for him to play, so he's a little bit lacking in that area as well. Next we have Jubilee, and Jubilee is very fun. I like her a lot, but I do think that she is another B tier hero, which is still great, right? She's still a solid hero in Marvel Champions. I'm gonna put her where in the B tier, guys? Definitely behind Iceman. I don't think she's as strong as him, but I think she's stronger than all the heroes behind her. So she does have amazing stunning and confusing ability. She can easily confuse lock or stun lock a non-stalwart or steady villain. And for the higher difficulty scenarios, she does have very high economy to play a lot of cards to get her crucial upgrades and supports down. So I do think she can handle herself against the more difficult scenarios, but it is going to be a lot of a struggle for her, which is why she is here in the B tier. But yeah, she definitely is a very strong and power hero with a lot of versatility and very good economy. The most lacking thing for her is going to be her survivability. She's very squishy at 9 hit points, and yeah, she doesn't really have any defensive cards in her kit at all. So that's going to be the biggest thing holding her back. Next we have Nightcrawler here. He's another B tier hero in my opinion, and I think he's actually stronger than Jubilee, but not as strong as Iceman. So I think this is the perfect spot for Nightcrawler to be. And it's kind of ironic that these heroes that came out back to back to back are all in the B tier right next to each other, but that's where I think that they line up. In my experience playing Nightcrawler, I think that he is the strongest basic defender in Marvel Champions because BAMF, whenever you trigger it, it's super duper efficient because you don't have to exhaust to make a basic defense. And Nightcrawler has a basic defense stat of 3, which is really, really powerful. If you get his colors down, he gets up to 4 defense. His attack goes from 1 to 2, and then he keeps his 2 Thor removal, which he starts off with, which is really, really powerful as well. Nightcrawler also has really reliable ways to grab BAMFs from his alter ego and his hero side of his card. But the biggest thing that's lacking with him is that whenever you are triggering BAMF, you are forced to kind of defend the attack and you can't chump block. And I think that that limits the way that he wants to play against the most difficult scenarios in the game of Marvel Champions. Against easier scenarios, I think that Nightcrawler can definitely demolish them because he can defend for 3 or 4 and take no damage several turns in a row. But once again, Ronin might hit for like 15. Venom Goblin can hit for like 8. Magneto can also hit for like 8, 9, 10, right? So he cannot fully block off all that damage from the higher difficult scenarios, and if you're not blocking with him, you can still play him that way, but you're just losing so much efficiency by not using BAMF because it's just such a good way to block. But being forced to play that way definitely limits him against those higher difficulty scenarios. So I think overall the B tier is a good spot for him. And then lastly, but definitely not least, we have Magneto here. One of my favorite heroes in Marvel Champions. He is super duper fun. He has amazing economy with his magnetic pull ability. He also has double resource in his kit with the Master of Magnetism. He has a super powerful and reliable ready in Magneto's cape, which in my opinion is the strongest and coolest card in his kit, because that was a card that I got to review from Fantasy Flight Games. But yeah, Magneto is super duper cool, super duper powerful, and I think that he is definitely also an S tier hero. But where he goes in the S tier is a little bit difficult. He definitely is in the lower end of the S tier for me, just because I do feel like that his survivability is not as strong as the other heroes in there. So definitely behind Spider-Man. And the question is he above Doctor Strange or behind Doctor Strange? So Doctor Strange does rely more on stuns and confuses than Magneto with his invocation deck. I think overall Magneto is behind Doctor Strange here in the S tier. He's not as strong as Strange, just because I do feel like a lot of the cards in Magneto's kit is very reliant on a specific thing, right? So like the Wrapped in Metal, you need to have a minion in play. Magnetic Missile, you need to have a minion that is Wrapped in Metal that's in play. For his Electromagnetic Blast, you need to have a villain that has an attachment on them to get the full value out of that Thor event. Even his main attack event, the Metal Shards, you need to defeat an enemy to get that tough status card, right? And then he only has 2 copies of that card in his kit. So he does have really good stuff, right? Like with his cape, which is very, very reliable. But a lot of his events, for their kicker, you need a specific condition to be met. And it's a little bit hard to have that card in your hand whenever that condition can be met. That being said, I definitely think that Magneto is an S tier hero because he can reliably and consistently defeat every single villain in the game of Marvel Champions. I've done it on my channel now that he's come out and we had a few days with him. So he's definitely worthy of being one of the strongest heroes in Marvel Champions. But I do think that Doctor Strange and the other heroes above him are a little bit more reliable. There you have it, guys. This is my completed hero tier list of every single hero in Marvel Champions up to the end of 2024 going into 2025. And yeah, from the strongest hero of Cable to the weakest hero in my experience of Hawkeye here. And once again, this is based on my experience playing the game of Marvel Champions. This is in no way definitive. As I play these heroes more, I may change my opinion on them and move certain heroes up or down. Definitely let me know what you guys think about my tier list right here. Do you guys agree with the majority of it? Do you guys disagree? Let me know what you think. Let me know what you would change. Let me know what you would keep the same. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video and you guys enjoyed seeing my rankings here. Thank you to everyone who is watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.